bipartisan support.
All right. What about the Russians? Are they on board?
The Russians are kind of on board. They need the money. This is a very expensive undertaking, right? And they want American assistance. And I think for this, there's a good reason to give them that kind of assistance.
Yeah, I agree. What's the money for? Is it for the decommissioning, or is it to keep them up?
Well, we also pay, many people don't know that, we also pay for Russian scientists. We pay their salaries, nuclear scientists.
So they won't go elsewhere?
So they won't go elsewhere. That's exactly right.
Yeah, but some of them, I think, went to Iran.
That's right.
But kept
so they won't go elsewhere. That's right.
Oh, that's good. Well, that's interesting. All right, this also about the Defense Department. There's an article in the Atlantic magazine. While everybody knows the defense budget is large, the truth is that when one scratches beneath the bureaucratic veneer, spending is much larger, nearly double the amount the U.S. citizens are told. He's got a breakdown here. What's widely reported in the press is the Department of Defense base budget, which is $530 billion roughly. But if you add to that other expenses spread out in other departments of government, like Veterans Affairs, Homeland Security, International Affairs, Department of Energy, Nuclear, you end up with close to $1 trillion.
Yes, if you add all of those other departments' budgets, yes, you do. That's a bit of ledger debate, I think. I mean, truly, it's right. You could add the Department of Homeland Security. You can add the Department of Energy. Yes, you can add even certain activities of the Department of State, Department of Treasury. You could add a lot of stuff. Veterans Affairs. You can add a lot of stuff, and it would all in one way or another related, somewhat tenuously perhaps, but related to the military. Right. But I think that's true. If you look at it that way, it's perhaps double. But if you say this is the budget of the DOD, the Department of Defense, you cannot say that it is double the amount that is put forth for the Department of Defense. You cannot say that. You can say that other departments within the government that have military-related programs.
Exactly.
And therefore, it's doubled. That's honest.
That's what they mean.
Dishonest.
Well, no, I think that's what they mean.
Well, they don't say that.
Also, some things weren't even included there, like intelligence agencies.
Yes, if you want to include the CIA.
Well, that's
you want to include
related.
the DIA.
That's...
Would you like to include Drug Enforcement, DEA?
Well,
why not?
Maybe not.
Well, I don't know. It's got a lot to do with Afghanistan and all the rest of it.
Well, then there you are.
Well, you can just carry on this way. I think they're being a little disingenuous.
Well, then you'll grant that it's probably higher than that base budget, that base number.
In terms of American budgets, everything is probably somewhat high.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right. Well, let's move on to the economic world. It's a big week for Greece. Eurozone finance ministers have agreed to a second bailout for Greece after marathon talks in Brussels. Greece is to receive loans worth more than 130 billion euros. That's about $170 billion. In return, Greece will undertake, I like that word they use, to slash its debt from 160% of GDP to 120% within 8 years. The country needs the funds to avoid bankruptcy, which would happen on March 20th. If it didn't get this money, that's when its loans on its bonds mature. Now, under the deal hammered out, there's 5 components. Greece undertakes to reduce this debt to 120% of GDP. Private lenders of Greek debt, which is primarily banks, they will take a loss of between 53 and 70%.
Big haircut.
Yeah. Greece's economic management will be subjected to permanent monitoring by Eurozone experts. Greece will amend its constitution to give priority to debt repayments over the funding of government services. Greece will set up a special account managed separately from its main budget that must always contain enough money to service its debts for the coming 3 months. I don't know what happens after that. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, there are 2 points. First of all, the Greek public has not shown any indication that they would like to abide by these austerity programs. No indication whatsoever. In fact, exactly the opposite. And if they cannot get the Greek public behind them in this program, we're going to be out another bailout. How many times can they do this?
Yeah.
I really feel this is really a futile exercise, one that will kick the can down the road for a while. But we will revisit this, Jason, in the not-too-distant future.
Maybe so. It ends with saying that it's simply to repay the banks so that they can retain their balance sheets on the profit size. The funds are not coming in and are not staying in Greece. It's just
how are they going
just
to
pay
grow? The major thing is they can only get out of this by growing the economy.
Yeah.
And under this austerity program, the economy will get even worse. Well, it becomes a vicious cycle.
A bit like Germany in the 20s.
Perhaps.
Yeah, interesting. But now they do say that Parliament in Greece passed last week something that set out 3 billion euros worth of cuts to salaries and pensions, which sparked protests. But 3 billion is a tiny amount compared with a loan of 130 billion.
Sparked was a good word. They burned a lot of buildings in the center of Athens. I mean, I don't know if they can get the support of the people.
So it looks iffy now.
Very.
Just to
and
see,
Portugal as well.
Right, but just to see what's going on the other side of the coin, the money is mostly coming from Germany. This from Reuters. By the way, in case you tuned in late, we're speaking to Dr. David Summers of the Summers Institute of Foreign Affairs. It says Germany is not happy with this. Now, Germany is running out of patience with throwing money into the bottomless pit, that's a quote, of Greece's debt crisis, and any lingering sympathy in Berlin is being undermined by anti-German slogans on the lips of Greek politicians and austerity protesters. Yeah, I guess that's not appreciated.
Right.
Here they're giving money, and these guys are bad-mouthing.
They want control of their economy. They don't like it nationalistically speaking.
Says, while officially hailing the Greek parliament's approval of the savings package required for a new $130 billion bailout, Berlin signaled this would not automatically mean more aid in the future. Feelings grow that Greece should not be saved at any cost. So, all right, so Greece has this second tranche of money, but the third go-around, if there needs to be one, maybe that's about it.
It's going to be tough. That's certainly true. And she, too, has to convince her public that it's worth it.
That's Merkel, the Prime Minister of Greece.
The Chancellor, German Chancellor.
Right. All right. Let's see now. Some good news for the U.S. After years of jobs leaving the U.S., things might be picking up. This is from Reuters. Big manufacturers moved their production out of the country too quickly over the past couple of decades and now see a competitive advantage in building up their footprints back here in the U.S. The chase for lower-paid workers drove the migration, which resulted in employment in the U.S. manufacturing sector falling 40% from its 1980 peak. Several big companies, including Boeing and GE, are now finding that the benefit of lower wages can be offset by higher logistics and material costs. Like Boeing had how many thousands of small manufacturers that made little parts for their new Dreamliner
And they
plane.
had problems with it.
What a mess.
Well, that's true. But
you're missing one part, I guess. You can't finish the plane.
it is good news for America in general, but probably not very good news for the unions. That is, these jobs that are coming back to America are almost all going to be situated in states that are right-to-work states, and that they don't have to deal with the rather obstreperous unions.
Yeah, but didn't something happen? Boeing wasn't allowed to start production into South Carolina?
The government has backed off of that. The NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board.
How is it they have the power to not allow a company to go into production?
You're right. There was some reasoning that this was a ploy by Boeing to get out of the obligations to their workers in Washington, the state of Washington, and to switch to South Carolina to lower their costs. Well, it happens to be true. That's exactly what Boeing was trying to do.
Right, but what's the crime?
And what is the illegality of that?
Right.
What is wrong with that?
Yeah.
Well, it seems to me that they're going forward with that in South Carolina, that NLRB is backed off.
Yeah, but I wonder what legal basis the NLRB used.
I don't know. It's to get around union contracts, I guess they're saying. It's wrong.
All right, well, it goes on to say here, GE CEO Jeff Immelt said, labor is still higher, but it's closer than it's been in the past, and both materials and distribution are less expensive in the U.S. than imported. A problem, though, is some 600,000 U.S. manufacturing jobs are going unfilled because companies cannot find applicants with the skills needed. We talked about that before.
Right, we talked about that, yes.
Do you think that's accurate, 600,000?
I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, but the situation is dire for certain positions where we just have not trained people to take over these skilled machinist kind of position.
Well, we've been in recession for like 5 years now, and there's a lot of people that would be more than happy to do some training to be able to fill these jobs.
To do the training.
Training for that can't be all that long.
Well,
a few months, a year.
I don't know exactly, but you do have to train these people to have apprentice programs and others, which we have neglected in this country.
Well, all right, so let's go with, well, better wrap it up soon. This will be the last one. This from The Atlantic. Why don't Americans riot anymore? America hasn't had a rash of mass urban violence in a generation. Urban riots, though, have broken out around the world since then. You've got Athens, London, China, Paris, Greece right now, and I think Italy and Spain had some issues, and probably others around the world, Brazil maybe. Some of the answers are previously marginalized groups in this country that once felt they had no other outlet now have more voices in the political process. Minorities are also more incorporated into high-end jobs, universities, and neighborhoods. Populations that once rioted have now joined the consumer republic, in which more people are able to buy symbols of the good life. And authorities, authorities have ramped up their surveillance and control tactics, which puts a damper on organizing in the first place.
I think all of the above. That's right, yes, all of the above. That's exactly true.
The U.S. government's done a good job of keeping this
Well, I don't know
peaceful.
if that's the case.
And we had
Partly. I mean, here in Madison, what have we had? We have had no major demonstrations, except, mind you, for the unions.
Well, true.
Huge demonstration.
Yeah, but peaceful, very peaceful. Not
peaceful,
riots in any
yes.
way.
Not riots.
Oh, we have to end. I'm so sorry. Thanks for joining us today here at NewsDesk, and thanks to our on-air producer, Melissa Minkoff, technical director, Tony Zergibel, our intern, Katie Merkolewski. Thanks for joining us, and join us next week for another episode of NewsDesk. That's Channel 95 Analog, 991 Digital, and on the internet, wyou.org. That's Wednesdays, 5:30 p.m., Friday mornings, 6:30 a.m., and Friday evenings, 9 p.m. Stay tuned for the news with Amy Goodman. This is Jason Miller, WYOU, broadcasting from Madison, Wisconsin. Bye for now.